Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ed Moran from Visionary AI Partners. And today we're talking with Aaron Kirk Douglas, Director of Market Intelligence at HFO Investment Real Estate. Aaron is a storyteller at heart, combining strategic marketing, communications, and filmmaking with his passion for multifamily real estate. He hosts the HFO podcast called Multifamily Market Watch, and he's also the author of a memoir, Growing Up Twice. From market insights to compelling narratives, Aaron brings a unique perspective to the industry. Aaron, it's great to have you here. I have a lot of questions for you.
Okay, well, fire away.
First off, tell us about how you came about in your day-to-day job at HFO.
All right, well, I graduated from the University of Oregon in journalism in 1983. And then I had a few different jobs working as a news reporter in radio and television. And over the years, I migrated to working for lawyers, doing professional services marketing. And I did that for about 10 years for the law firms of Miller Nash, Barron Liebman, and Lane Powell, which are Pacific Northwest based law firms.
Okay.
Because the media landscape had changed so much since I graduated college in 83, I had to go back to school to understand digital media production. So in order to learn how all that worked, I went back to school for a couple of years to study documentary or digital media production. Made a couple documentaries and ended up working at HFO Investment Real Estate almost 20 years ago. So
Wow.
I've been doing marketing and research there for that long. We are the leading multifamily investment brokerage for Oregon and Southwest Washington, and we're the largest firm that just focuses exclusively on multifamily in the Pacific Northwest.
Wow. And when you say Northwest, Oregon,
Oregon
Washington
and
State.
Washington.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so we have 20 people in our office, and all we do is multifamily.
Wow. Tell us about what is your role exactly in the company? What are you doing?
I try to keep track because I'm working about half time now on my way to retirement. I work about 5 hours a day now. I see. Yeah, finally, it's been a long road.
Yeah.
I try to keep our brokers. We have 10 multifamily brokers, and I try to keep them all informed of what's happening in the market so that when they talk to investors and developers and owners, they know what's going on so they can advise them and what the landscape is, both legally with ordinances that various city councilors are passing, with state legislation, with all of those kinds of things, changes in expenses, all the way down to utility increases and whatnot that owners need to be aware of that are coming their way that are going to impact their investments.
And how are you getting them that information?
Well, it's interesting. For the longest time, I was sending emails to them whenever I ran across something. But let me back up for just a second. In February or March of 2023, I became aware of a class from this company called Massimo Group, and they were offering a commercial real estate class on how to write queries for AI. And that's when I really started to learn about this new thing called AI. And they had a spreadsheet that now that I look back at it this morning, and it actually was pretty simple, but at the time it seemed really complicated because you were telling AI or Chat GPT all of the things that you wanted it to consider in writing its response to whatever you were asking about. So it had things like, I want you to write in this tone, and I want you to find this, and I want you to give me this. And that made a lot of sense to me because as a reporter, I thought, well, these are the questions you would be asking someone if you were doing an interview. So you're basically writing all of your interview questions out for this robot and you're telling it, this is what I want to know and from you, and I want you to tell me all of this. And it's not going to actually know it itself necessarily right off the top of its head, but it will go out and find all of that for you and give it back to you in the format that you requested. So I think having a journalism background has been really helpful for me. And the more that I've used ChatGPT and the more that it's advanced, I think it's becoming much easier. And to the point where sometimes now I just ask it to write a query for me. And I say, this is what I want to know. What should I ask you in order to get that back? And then it will just write the whole thing. And then I just cut and paste that into a query. There was a moment last week when I've never done any kind of computer programming, but there was a moment last week when I was using it when I kind of freaked myself out a little bit because I downloaded a whole bunch of data from CoStar about sales that had happened in our market. And I uploaded it to ChatGPT and I asked it a bunch of questions about that. And it said, well, it couldn't read the file that I uploaded. Sometimes that happens, where you upload a file and it will say, keep dropping it here. And you do it like 5 or 6 times. And it's like, for some reason, I can't open that link. So then it said, well, let me write you some Python code and you can drop this code into a box on Google something. I forget what it's called now. So it's like the Google app that lets you enter Python language into a cell and you can run that against a report. And it wrote all of these charts. I couldn't believe it. I had to do it a few times because some of the cells didn't work right. But then I kept telling it that the errors that I was getting, and it would rewrite its language. And then pretty soon I had this amazing report with all of these charts in it that would have taken me
hours,
days to even figure out.
Yeah, if not, days.
Yeah,
so it's amazing. So you guys are using AI more now? I know you started off slow, but have you implemented more? Or are you?
So I'm using it and researching the market in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
We're using it for marketing, summarizing long documents and things like that. I'm using it to write questions for the guests that we have on our YouTube channel and also for summarizing those interviews so that I can promote them. Getting the transcripts, the closed captioning, and all that stuff, which used to take forever, or you had to outsource to someone to type up the actual language of it. But I'm not so aware yet of all the other ways that you can implement AI within an office, which I understand is what you guys do. So I'd be curious.
That's what we do, but it depends on, all have different needs.
Mm-hmm.
So we solve problems, or I like to say issues. I'm going to ask you the bad thing. Is there anything bad with the AI? Because, sometimes you were just mentioned a little bit, I should say issue, not bad, issues with that you're noticing.
Well, it doesn't hallucinate as much as it used to, I have to say. It used to, frankly, just make things up.
Yeah.
And I still ask it to provide citations for everything that it writes to me. And there are some reports that I run every week, and I have it include those sites so that I can just click on the hyperlinks and read them myself to make sure that it's accurate. Yeah. Sometimes, even now, it will provide links to sources that are 2 or 3 years old. So it's not actually a current commercial real estate story or trend. And those I have to just delete because, they're not right.
Right.
It doesn't catch everything that I might see. So I have Google alerts set up for certain keywords and I review those every week also. in case it misses stories or events that I also, see on a different, even just, Google Alerts, which has been around for a very long time. I feel like at this point,
Yeah.
just looking at those and scanning through those, I sometimes see things that it has missed. But I have to say, it's also surfaces things that I ran it today and it surfaced a legal case that I hadn't seen written up in any major multifamily publication in several months. And I was surprised that they have missed it. So that's one story that I will be writing about today for our LinkedIn newsletter
Yeah.
that I think it's kind of an important national story. And that was whether landlords deserve reimbursement for the money they lost during the pandemic when the government would not let them evict people who were not paying their rent. So,
Oh, okay. I have not seen that.
so they were suing the government, calling that a taking of private property without compensation. And that case is still on appeal. But there have been a few steps in that
Interesting.
case that haven't been reported on.
With adjustments with AI, are you finding that the more detail you give it, or like you said, it printed out an old
Mhm.
article that wasn't up to date for what you needed, do you find it quickly that you can tell it, listen, I need updated this year?
Yeah, I have, but this will happen even on some reports that I run every week that tell it just to scan for things in the last 7 days. Sometimes it misses the dates on things that it locates,
Yeah.
or it might even keep bringing up a story over and over again that is important, but everyone already knows about it. Like the fact that the state of Washington implemented rent control this year for the first time. It brings that story up a lot, even though it happened in January.
Okay.
It likes to keep reminding me about that. And so I have to exclude that from the information that I'm providing to our office because everyone already is aware of that. And I think people who own apartment buildings don't, they already know that. The only thing that might have changed is that it's being enforced occasionally. And in Washington, it's different because it's enforced by the attorney general rather than tenants having to sue for
Uh,
that and
Interesting.
themselves.
And how do you guys deal with the constantly changing regulations?
Well, that's what I try to keep. That's what I think differentiates us from a lot of commercial real estate companies is that we provide that information on a continual basis, and there's not through our blog on our website, our newsletters that we have, and our emails and our YouTube interviews, which are long form interviews, generally about 20 or 25 minutes on topics of interest in the industry. And nobody does interviews like that anymore. I mean, maybe 60 Minutes does 20-minute interviews on certain things. But for this industry, there's no one else that is doing that. And I know people really appreciate having access to that information. We have a library of over 330 interviews that we've compiled over the years from things changing. And we interview a lot of attorneys as the law changes so that we get legal opinions on these things and they talk to landlords how to prepare for the various changes.
Yeah, we get that a lot with constant changing. A lot of the property management companies are, having to deal with because sometimes they deal with multiple states, and as you know, everybody's different.
Right. And even within cities, it can be so different
Yes.
because a city will pass an ordinance and a management company has properties in multiple cities and multiple counties and multiple states, like you said. And so they have to have legal forms that are different for all of these properties. And it can become a real headache, which is why people who used to you could be a mom and pop landlord and not have a management company but it's just becoming more difficult with
Yes.
the additional regulations. And so it means that what it means ultimately is that renters pay more rent because they have to hire managers to deal with all of that regulation. And the landlords are, let's face it, they're not going to pay that. So they're going to pass that cost along to the consumer.
And how are your pricing for your units in the Northwest there?
Yeah, it the pricing came down a little bit the last few months. Everything just kind of before the election, things were slowing down because people wanted to see what happened, with the election, and
Okay.
so there was all of that. And there was just a lot of uncertainty. There's always a certain amount of trading that happens in the market because people's life change. They get divorced. Their partnerships break up. They need to cash out for one reason or another. Their loan
Situations
is coming to an
change.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are always things that if you have a balloon payment coming up and you don't want to refinance, then you pretty much are between a rock and a hard place, and a lot of times you
Yeah.
may need to sell that property. So we would see pricing alterations at that point. But things have flattened out a lot now. I think after the first half of this year, and some properties are trading again at rates that are making their owners some profit.
A little more manageable.
Yeah.
The multifamily tenants and owners, who do you think is, you said it's kind of leveling off. Is that for the tenant or for the property
Oh,
multifamily?
for the tenants, actually, it's been very good the last year and a half. In Portland and this Southwest Washington, maybe not so much Vancouver, the rates for rentals overall have gone down about 1%. So even though Oregon had a rent cap last year of 10%, and this year is about 9.6, I think, it won't be nearly that much because the rents just aren't going up right now. There were a lot of units under construction that were in the pipeline that were completed last year and leased up. So as we're getting to the tail end of the absorption of the units built in the last year and a half or so, the rents may start to go up, but it really depends on the job market. It depends on population increase.
A lot of
It
factors.
depends. Yeah. So if people flee Portland because the taxes are too high, which is something that we've been hearing a lot lately, and they're going to Vancouver, Washington, which has lower taxes, both property taxes and income taxes, the rents there have been increasing a little more, even though they've been building a lot of units. And
Okay.
Vancouver, Washington is now the largest submarket in the Portland metro area in terms of
Okay.
apartments because they have built so many apartments in the last few years.
So you have a lot of supply in that area.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well,
So
don't
those are
don't
being
don't
snapped
move to
up.
Connecticut. We'll definitely tax you to death here.
So renters this year, we don't expect in Portland. We'll see rents increase more than like 1% on average.
Okay.
And next year, maybe somewhere between 2 and 3%, and around 2 to 3% after that, the next few years. So it's not looking like rents are going to be climbing astronomically, but they do have to climb somewhat in order to compensate landlords for increasing utility costs and increasing insurance rates and all of those, and increasing property taxes. So all of those things cost landlords more, and those costs will be paid ultimately by the tenants themselves. I've always voted, even when I was a renter, I like to vote for things that were good for my city and my state and my county. And I didn't always, and the schools, and I didn't always think about it that much. But I think what some renters don't think about is that, oh, wait, this could make my rent go up if I vote for this school bond or this parks bond or whatever it is. it's just not always the straight line between you voting for something and then something costing you more is not, it's not as direct as if you owned a house and you were going to get a property tax bill yourself. But it is, I mean, it is there. So some
Yeah.
people talk about that.
Well, like if you remember, a couple years ago when we were younger, like that was like the last thing I was thinking of.
Right.
And I think this generation coming up is probably, in a lot of ways, they're different, but in some ways, it's the same.
No, I have a lot of empathy for, I mean, I was a renter at least half my life. I didn't a house or a condo or anything.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of empathy for renters. I've been there. I've had to file small claims to collect my deposit back from landlords 3 times. And,
Jeez.
not all landlords are angels,
No, they are not.
but I
I've
think,
rented a few times myself.
yeah, but I think most of them, at least the ones that I have been dealing with the last 20 years, the vast majority of them are not out to take advantage of renters. They're out to just provide stable
Right.
housing that is safe for everyone who lives there and keep things livable. We live in a market economy, so it still has to provide enough return on their investment for them to even bother with it. And some days the headaches they can feel overwhelming and make people wonder whether it's worth building housing when there's so many regulations and strings attached to it.
Yes, we have not made it easy in some ways.
So we don't want to discourage people from doing that. And I think sometimes I know well meaning legislatures and well meaning city councilors, they want to do things that are seen as being very tenant friendly, but they don't think about it from the opposite side of the coin and what that actually means in terms of implementation costs for a landlord.
Now, this the type of stuff, information you're giving out? We were talking a little bit before we started here. Your company does a podcast called Multifamily Market Watch. Can you tell us
Yes.
a little bit about that and what you guys usually discuss?
Yeah, so the podcast over the last couple of years has changed a little bit. It was for many years just a voiceover of recent news headlines and or studies or whatnot. But now there are a couple of episodes every month where I write the podcast, and it's very short. It's actually 5 to 7 minutes usually of news updates for either Oregon or Washington State. And then it's intermingled with the audio portion of the YouTube videos that we do. So the 25-minute, the longer length interviews that our partner Greg Frick does with the guests that I book on our show, those will run separately as a podcast.
And how many do you do a month?
We do one a week. It's released
Okay.
on Thursday night or Friday morning every week.
Excellent. Excellent. Before we go, I just want to, do you have anything you want to promote for your company, or you like to offer that opportunity also? We help other businesses.
I think really just that if you are an investor or a developer of a multifamily property in Oregon or Southwest Washington, that you should take a look at our website at hfore.com and learn more about us. We have a whole link there on market insights, which is continuously being updated with links to our podcasts and our YouTube videos, and also articles that are on there. They're sometimes quoted in the local media for the insights that they can provide you with. And I encourage people to look there. And of course, while you're there, you want to scroll over and look at all of our current listings. And it's just a note that not everything we currently have listed or know is for sale is listed on our website. So
Okay.
if it turned out that somebody was looking for a specific investment type of, apartments in the Portland metro, Oregon or Southwest Washington area, that if they call us, we can put that in our database. And then when something comes up that fits that criteria, we can be sure to give them a call.
Okay. Fantastic. And one last question. If you had to solve one issue in the next 6 to 12 months, what would that be?
Oh gosh, it would be, how do we reduce the amount of regulation that we have on apartment owners? There are a lot of overlapping regulations, and I think if the state legislature could pass a law that said cities and counties cannot pass any laws that supersede what the state has, or only the state can control landlord tenant laws, then that would be my hope, because I think just this whole patchwork laws and regulations and whatnot, it makes everything too complicated. And if you can consolidate all of those discussions at the state level, where you have the governor trying to build 36,000 units a year in Oregon, but you have other jurisdictions passing things that are very restrictive on development, it's not going to help us move that needle, and we're never going to get there.
Absolutely. I talk to other clients that are having the same issues. It's definitely an issue with the overlap, like you said, the local to the state. And we just want to make it simple and streamlined so you're helping everybody. How do you see yourself using AI in the future?
Wow. Okay. Honestly, I have no idea, because I feel like every day is surprising me in some way. So what I think about for our organization is, how can we use AI with our client database in order to flag their interests and activity they're taking on our website, to know what they might be interested in. You know what I'm saying? Like, collect more data to serve people better, because right now we can't, it's hard to read people's mind if they don't connect with you on a personal level, but they are interacting with your website, or listening to your podcast, or watching your YouTube videos, and you don't, maybe they're clicking on listings, but they're not giving you really any information on what they're looking for. And so I always wonder, is there a way that we could actually prioritize connecting with people that we know are actively looking in the market, but that just aren't talking to us? And there are a lot of things that we could help people with. Like I said, because we don't always have all of the listings we know about in our website, and I think there are a lot of opportunities that get passed up by investors because we just aren't aware that they're actively looking.
Okay. All right. Hey, well, it was really, really great talking with you. You gave us a lot of great information, Aaron.